I have a face. And thank you for being here. Conscious Conversations is a production, is presented by Virtual Practitioner Program. And Virtual Practitioner Program is a core of practitioners all over the world. And we serve home office. So we'll start with a prayer as always. Would anybody like to pray us in? Or I know I love Reverend Sherry's prayers, but I
Yeah,
can pray us
I'm
in.
glad to.
Okay, thank you.
And Joyful Joni, do you go by both monikers together?
You can call me either Joni or Joyful Joni, whichever you
Because I
prefer.
like to say I'm sharing Sherry.
Oh, then call me Joyful Joni by all means.
Okay. So anyway, let us just release all the whatever of technology and just know that we are here in this present moment. So taking a deep breath, perhaps holding it for a moment and then releasing it. We just sit in the joyful moment, in the expectation moment of the all that is, of that divine spirit that is all life, all energy, everything from physical stuff like molecules to light stuff like photons to that indescribable and beyond time and space stuff. For God is the all. And so we sit in this allness today and we gather together to share our hearts, share our oneness about trust, about listening, for it is listening to that inner voice, that deep voice of the cosmos, that deep voice of the universe that is the spirit of all, that we come to know ourselves, know our neighbors, and celebrate in the unity of our communities, our nation. Yes, there is unity there. Sometimes we have to look for it, and unity of each other. So I'm grateful to Karen for hosting this, and for Joyful Joni, and for Jerry and myself for this time, and for any who might be listening on the recordings later, knowing this time is blessed and very blessed. So I release it into that universal principle that makes it all so. In that releasing, I celebrate, and join me in acknowledging this by saying together, and so it is.
So be it.
And
So
so it is. Thank you, Reverend Sherry. And welcome, and thank you for joining me today. So I'm going to share my screen. Oops. I didn't bring it up after the update. Okay, so Conscious Conversations, the name of the series is Conscious Conversations, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Times. And I will be talking about finding unity and surrender. Now, since unity is really implicit in surrender and trust, we won't be talking about it directly. But surrender is a way of finding unity. We'll start with a quote. Faith is the attitude of one who makes a complete mental surrender. It can arise only through a consciousness of complete abandonment. Complete abandonment. We'll be talking about different ways of that complete abandonment today. So we'll start with a definition. Surrender, according to Oxford Languages, means to stop fighting and accept defeat, or to give something up. So essentially, surrender means we stop fighting reality, but reality doesn't fight back. So I don't think we really accept defeat. And we don't give anything up that is really valuable. We give up only our misconceptions. And as we shall see, We have a lot of misconceptions about reality. And those misconceptions cause judgment, anger, regret, worry. As we surrender these misperceptions, we accept reality as exactly as it is, and we find peace. Other ways of looking at surrender is accepting, releasing, letting go, and a withdrawal of effort, because surrender does not take effort. It takes effort to fight reality. Surrender is a process. It doesn't necessarily happen overnight. We surrender one thing at a time. And it's unconditional. It's not sacrifice. We don't give up anything except for our misperceptions, and those aren't valuable. They're valueless. It's not bargaining. Surrender doesn't demand repayment. But surrender can be frightening. Surrender is about giving up control. People control things because they fear them. Surrender is frightening because we think we actually control things. We think our worry, our regret, our anger actually has an effect on reality. Surrender is frightening because we think we are in charge. But if we're not in charge, who is? And can we trust it? From Oxford Languages, to have trust is to have confidence in someone or something, or to believe that they are honest, sincere, or good. Well, this fits our definition of surrender, of trust. To have confidence in life, a higher power, our inner wisdom. Trust is a choice to give up our misperceptions, to stay with the fear, even if we are frightened. We can choose to trust. Whether we trust life, higher power, or our inner wisdom, it does not matter. They're all letting go of control. And that brings us back to surrender. Surrender and trust are intertwined. So the first path we'll look at is A Course in Miracles. I did a search on surrender and it doesn't appear once. However, letting go, releasing, giving up, all of these appear numerous times. In A Course in Miracles, we surrender by releasing our defenses, and defenses are based in fear. And this is how we forgive. We forgive ourselves for believing in what never was. We forgive ourselves for believing that we are separate. The Course tells us we cannot judge anything accurately. We judge from our conditioning. We judge from our misperceptions. We judge things as we think they are, not as they really are. We actually think the child of God can be something else. When we were babies, we just existed moment to moment. We lived in the present. And then we saw an other as a separate person, and our conditioning began. We saw things as separate, we judged them. We experienced things, we judged them. So all of this comes in to how we judge things today. The Bible says we should not judge, but the truth is we cannot judge. We can't judge our progress. Some of our deepest defeats we judge as successes, And some of our greatest successes we judge as failures. We simply don't have enough information to judge anything accurately. Because we can't judge, we don't know our own best interests. The Course tells us we don't realize the outcome that will make us happy. If I only got married, if I only won the lottery, if, and then we find it doesn't make us happy. When we realize we don't perceive our own best interests, we can be taught what they are. The inner voice tells us all we need to know. This is incredible. Everything we know is present, we need to know is present right now. And nothing is too small, too insignificant for guidance. The practice is to ask about what you should buy, ask what you should have for breakfast. Continually ask. And then with practice, guidance comes freely on its own accord. To listen, let go of answers that are acceptable or unacceptable. Forget the question, don't anticipate the answer, and trust that the inner voice is there. Where we get stuck is making exceptions. This person is not part of God. This situation cannot be solved. This is all our misperceptions. There can be no exceptions. So what are some common misperceptions that we hold about ourselves or about our lives? And what techniques do you use to surrender, or anything you would like to know about, you would like to discuss about what we just spoke about?
Well, something that you said, I kind of wondered about. We judge a lot of our successes as failures and a lot of our failures as successes. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I'm sorry, my camera's off. I have to lie down.
That's okay. That's okay.
So I didn't think you'd want to see me lying on this side of the
Well,
blanket.
the idea is, let's see. Okay, a success might be, oh, I sure showed that person. Or and is that a success? Something that we want. Like the Course says, we don't know our own best interests.
Oh, I could see where that would be questionable.
Right.
Something like that, yeah.
So yes, there's some, it doesn't say all, it says some.
Oh, okay, okay.
We don't know where we're headed either. That's the thing. How can we, in order to be able to judge our progress, we need to be able to see it from a holistic perspective.
Yeah, and what's a success and what's a failure? I mean, that's
Right.
subjective, right?
Well, the way the Course defines success is anything that brings you closer to the light.
I'm sorry, it brings you what?
Closer, anything that brings your awareness closer to the light, anything that teaches you about the light.
Okay. And so a failure would be anything that brings you further away from the light.
Like
Okay.
judgments.
Okay.
Anything else, or should we move on? Yes.
The voice inside me sometimes says, and I'm working on this, so it's less and less, yay, but is that I'm not enough, or that I don't have enough experience or the skills, all from it. I guess these are all variations of lack, which we talk a lot about in Science of Mind and Spirit. And so, let's see, how was the question worded? Common misperceptions. So the misperception is, as a part of spirit, as a godlet, as I like to say, I have everything that I need to have an abundant and fulfilling and meaningful life. So it is my misperception. It is a shift in my consciousness that needs to happen. So I guess I just answered partially the second question. In surrendering and trusting is I need to know that it's all there. The pantry is full of all the ingredients for my life. And I just need to open the book of spirit, reach in and start cooking it.
I love the way you said that. I need to get my dog in from outdoors because they're barking.
And so it goes. Life happens.
Okay, so let's move on. So the next slide, the next topic we'll be discussing is the Bhagavad Gita. And it can be summarized by what Lord Krishna says is be without activity, be yourself. So the Bhagavad Gita happens on the battlefield. And Arjuna is a warrior who is on the verge of enlightenment. But he's called to fight his kinsmen because they are evil. He's torn between his duty to his family, which is called family dharma, and his duty to the cosmos, cosmic dharma, his greater duty. As the battle horn sounds, Lord Krishna appears. He says, while family dharma is important, the greater good must take precedence. His kinsmen are evil. They must be eliminated. He assures Arjuna that his kinsmen cannot die. Killing them isn't an end, but a fulfillment of his duty. Lord Krishna explains the nature of action, that life is about movement. True action is present in the moment. He urges Arjuna to act from his center, not from fear of loss or fear of the outcome, not from attachment to the outcomes, not from the attachment to his kinsmen are going to die. That's why he says, be without action. Act from your center. And in this way, you are yourself. Arjuna must understand that his identity isn't limited to his body. He's part of a greater reality, an expression of the divine itself. By identifying with his true self, something that Vedic scripture just calls the self with a capital S, he can act without fear and without attachment to the outcomes. The next path we'll explore is non-doership. This is the essence of non-doership. The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority, but the Father in me does the work. Jesus is saying that he is not the doer. He is acting from his center where the Father is. So how do we do? In our everyday lives, we identify with the bodies and our thoughts. We try to control outcomes, and we impose our perceptions on reality. We use the way of speaking to reinforce this, and we'll go into a little exercise to demonstrate this. Non-doership challenges us to step back from this doing. It challenges us to step back from the attachments and the identification. See life as it unfolds. Non-doership suggests that much of life happens without our intervention. Non-doership is the practice of disidentifying as the one who does things and allowing ourselves to be. So it's really best understood. There are a few really great books, if this interests you, that I can give you references for. But it's really, in a short segment like this, the experience, it's easier to understand it through experience. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Think about not being the doer and ask yourself, who are you really? Who are you beyond the emotions, beyond the personality and the thoughts? Do you do hearing? Do you have to activate your ears to hear? Do you do thinking? Or do thoughts just arise? And finally, do you do life? Or does life just happen? Everything has a cause. Each step follows logically from the previous happening. In fact, your decision to attend this talk, when did you decide? Probably when you saw it in the newsletter. Well, how did you receive the newsletter? When was the beginning of that? Who introduced you to CSL? Going back and back to each cause brings you back to your parents. And before that, your grandparents. We can trace every single cause to the Big Bang. So really, is life just happening? Or are we controlling it? I'm going to do this slide first, and then we'll go back. You are in the flow, in the moment. It's beautiful. People like this state and they want to keep it. Who wants to keep it? What if the thought of keeping it did not arise? What if you were just in the flow and it didn't stop because the notion of stopping or the idea of you being in flow did not arise? What if you were constantly in a let-go state? So let's move with this in mind. We're used to saying things like, I am hungry. I am tired. But really, that doesn't affect the way that is not the way that non-doership sees this. It's hunger is happening. Tiredness is happening. So with this in mind, I invite you to either walk, or it's really more effective with walking, or move in some way and say, I am walking. I am walking. And now change that to walking is happening. Walking is happening. Allow yourself to be moved from your center, like Lord Krishna tells us. Walking is happening. So the next question, what are the benefits of embracing a non-doership mindset? How might it change your experience of life? Or anything else? I love non-doership. I think it's very cool. If you're interested in it, like I said, the Tao of non-doing is a humorous take on it. And Daniel Shea, A Kiss from Reality, is a very good explanation. I'll probably do a talk on it one of these days. Any comments or questions? Anybody want to tackle that question? Reverend Sherry.
Karen, can you put the various books that you suggest in the chat, and then we can cut and paste it?
Okay.
And the benefits of embracing non-doership. Well, first I want to say, I don't remember where I first heard this, but my mind, our minds as humans shift from doing, being. And somebody made a joke and said, yeah, it's like Frank Sinatra singing doobie doobie doo. I think there's even a t-shirt with that on it. So how being more about being, so that's my word for, I never heard the phrase non-doership.
Yeah.
But I remember anyway, but beingship, being. And when I'm more about being than doing, I'm more peaceful, I'm more calm. And in the end, I end up doing more because I'm more efficient. But first, it's so whether it's taking a pause, I just recently found, have you folks heard about the free app, Insight Timer?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
There's a free version and then a paid version that has more features. And I've been using it since I was in practitioner school classes. Anyway, and it has a timer on there. And also there's other apps that have a timer that you can set for a little bell or some sound to go off at intervals. And since another practitioner right now is doing a gratitude series, Deborah Perdue, I have mine going off during the day on the hour. And I just pause while the gong is ringing and then resonating on my phone. It's from the phone. And I go, I'm just grateful. I stop what I'm doing. And I'm just grateful. And I can say I'm grateful for A and B and C and D. But sometimes I just try to feel it. It's all about, right? Holmes talks about, it's about feeling. So feeling grateful.
Right. That intermittent practice is what's important, I think. I think it's actually maybe, well, I can't say it's more important than the dedicated meditation periods, but yeah, it's very important to keep our awareness at that place. And what Daniel Shea suggests is at times throughout the day, say things the way they really are happening. Instead of saying, I am hungry, say things, hunger is happening. Instead of saying, I'm looking at the refrigerator, let's see, how can we do that? looking for food is happening. Something like that.
Mm.
And just pausing throughout the day and reminding yourself that what's really moving us is life.
So how would I word it about my stomach is in pain.
Stomach pain is happening.
Stomach pain is happening. Okay. My meditation, which is Eastern through Art of Living, talks about a non-doership all the time. And we talk about I want nothing, I have nothing, I am nothing, I do nothing. That's a common thing that's talked about and taught, and they teach the Gita. So yeah, this is interesting. I like this. Thank you.
You're welcome. I just ran into non-doership about 5 years ago. And, you know, I've been in this thought all my life. So it's something that's really, I think, not well known.
No, no, I haven't. Well, back when I did TM, I don't think I heard about non-doership, even though it's from the same lineage as TM. It's only been in the more recent years that I, started doing this meditation, so that I started hearing about it.
It's not meant to be a path or another concept, but it has there's a lot of consequences that comes out of it. It's not meant to be another concept, though. It's meant to take you away from concepts and into experience.
Yeah.
Anything else, or should I move on to Buddhism? Do you have anything to say,
We haven't heard from
Jerry?
our fourth member. Do you have anything to share, or are you just happy to listen?
No, I would like to share. I'm really grateful for the reminder of the Bhagavad Gita because I haven't read it for a while, and it may be time for me to read it again. I really love that book. When I talk about surrender, to me, and I'll ask a client, how do you feel about surrender? And very often it's the idea of giving up or whatever. And no, it's surrender into your higher good. And the idea of whatever we've been talking about, non-doer.
Non-doership.
Yeah. Well, I'm much more attuned to Eastern religion than I am to Christianity, although I think Yeshua had the way is a good thing to follow, but I don't consider myself Christian. Don't feel connected with the Bible very much. I kind of ran into the non-doership because I started to read a book about ADD, which at my advanced age, I've just got diagnosed with. And the author was, in spite of ADD, I've written 3 books and I've done all this stuff. And I run into this because there's such an emphasis on doing. Your value is how many books have you written? How many degrees do you have? And I caught myself rather nicely, I thought, with I've been a part of the Compassionate Heart Ministry at Seattle CSL for years and lead grief circles right now twice a month. And I've worked with kids practically since I showed up in 1982. So I have to remind myself that what I do is valuable. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having degrees and books and all of that, but I can't put myself into judging myself for not having done enough.
Absolutely.
I am really called right now to have a personal retreat, and I don't have to go anywhere. I can just sit and meditate all day at my house.
Lovely.
And somebody will cook for me, and that somebody will be me. Which,
Stay retreat. They talk about staycations. It's a stay retreat.
yep.
I do online meditation retreats at home. I haven't done one in person since like probably the 70s or 80s.
I do like retreats. My granddaughter who grew up at CSL and I are going to do, she doesn't go to church, but she is going to join me at the Sister Spirit Retreat with Reverend Abigail. And yeah, it's sometimes it's minute by minute by minute. Yeah, there's stuff that has been demanding my attention. And for a while, a month or so ago, it was sciatic pain. That's all healed. Having been through that, and I wasn't a very willing participant, but I moved through it, and it feels like I've opened myself up to a greater. I have surrendered into the greater good.
Superb. So, question, we have about 11 minutes. I have Buddhism and we're going to be talking about it. Can people stay a few minutes after, or should I try to rush through it?
I can't because I have an 11 o'clock Zoom.
Okay.
I have
Go either way.
Okay. So I'll go through it just for the video. And so let's get this up. So Buddhism tells us that the essence of human nature is primordial awareness, interconnection, emptiness, impermanence. Primordial awareness or primordial reality transcends opposites. And the distinction between subject and object, internal and external, is absent. Primordial awareness is the pure state of non-duality. It's really an experience. Buddhism doesn't spend much time talking about it. It could be comparable to God, spirit. Absolute reality is how Hinduism refers to it. Presence, oneness. But anything we could possibly say about it isn't it. We can experience it moment to moment. In the present moment, undisturbed by worries and concerns about the future or the past. We are interconnected. We are interconnected through our breath, through our ideas, through our DNA, and through something Buddhism calls dependent arising. When I asked you what led you to this talk, hey, you guys. Okay, so when I asked you what led you to this talk, that is an example of dependent arising. That everything has a cause, and life keeps happening without a beginning or an end, according to Buddhism. And this means that everything is impermanent, that the nature of reality is change. Now, interconnectivity, impermanence, and change tells us that there is no independent existence in reality. And this is what is meant by empty of existence, shunyata. Hinduism tells us that we are the self, that we are an expression of the divine, we are an expression of this primordial awareness. But Buddhism tells us, Hinduism calls it Atman. Hinduism says we are no self, we are Anatman. Because we are empty of existence, we are constantly changing. There is nothing that we can point to say that this is me, I am stable, I am independent, I don't depend on anybody. There's nothing we can point to that does that. There's nothing in reality defining who I am, who you are, independently. Now, shunyata doesn't mean that things don't exist. It's not saying that the self doesn't exist. It's merely saying that it is empty of a stable existence, of an independent existence. Buddhism, the core of Buddhism is the Four Noble Truths. The Buddhist said that suffering is real. Stop ignoring it. Instead, investigate it. He asks, why do we suffer? We suffer because we superimpose our interpretations on everything we see. That's what A Course in Miracles and many other paths call our misperceptions. Superimposing our interpretations on primordial awareness, this pure state of non-duality. And then we reify them, we make them real, and we attach to them. We grasp at them, we cling to them. Buddhism tells us that this cause of suffering is our attachments and our mental afflictions. Mental afflictions are unnatural. They're a result of grasping onto I and mine. This is who I am, and all this is my stuff. But we don't have to suffer. There's a way out. And the way out is the Noble Eightfold Path. So we'll back up a little bit to mental afflictions and attachments. There are three types: craving, aversion, and ignorance. Craving is when we see something and we want it. We believe it will make us happy, it will bring us pleasure. If we get it, we fear losing it. And yet, it doesn't make us happy. The opposite of craving is aversion. It's those things we don't want to happen, those things we avoid. And then we attach and cling to these things not happening. If these things happened, I will be miserable. Ignorance in Buddhism is of two types. General ignorance is ignorance of the nature of reality, ignorance of impermanence, ignorance of our interconnection, ignorance of shunyata, emptiness. This ignorance causes people to cling to a sense of separate self. This is identity ignorance. And it leads to us attaching to this identity. And remember, we invented this identity. Fear of loss and suffering. The way out, the Noble Eightfold Path, cultivates wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. Right understanding refers to the understanding of the nature of reality. Right thought means to cultivate the right attitudes and intentions, developing love, compassion, and letting go of harmful thoughts. Right speech, speaking kindly, honestly, and harmoniously. Right action includes ethical conduct and behaviors that lead to the well-being of all beings. Right livelihood encourages people to work in a field that does not cause harm to anyone, that is ethical. And right effort is the cultivation of positive qualities. Right mindfulness reminds us to be aware and mindful and develop awareness of the present moment. Right concentration refers to the practice of meditation and concentration. So how do the concepts of impermanence, emptiness, no self, and interconnection resonate with you, or anything else you'd like to discuss? Buddhism, by the way, surrenders. It's probably obvious, but Buddhism surrendering is through the Noble Eightfold Path, and it's a surrendering of our mental afflictions. Anything anyone wants to say about anything? Or shall I go to the last slide?
Well, personally, I don't know where this is from, but I like the line, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Yeah.
And so for Buddhism says suffering, that you're going to have suffering, but there's a way out. So I guess there's a conflict between those two lines of thought.
Buddhism talks about various types of suffering. The suffering of suffering is the suffering that we all recognize, physical pains, mental pain. Then
Like I have pain, but am I suffering from it? It's like I can choose to distract myself and not sit here and go, oh, I'm terrible, life is awful, and it's like there's no hope, and versus saying, okay, it hurts, but okay, I'm going to go on and go have a full life anyway.
Well, some of Buddhism's suffering is very, very subtle. And it is about the impermanent nature of reality. It's about our existential feelings about change. And there's another type of suffering that, I was going to include it in the talk, but it got too long. I'm drawing a blank right now, but there's 3 types of suffering in Buddhism. Did you take Buddhism, Reverend Sherry? Okay.
No.
yeah, a lot of my talks bring this Holmes Institute classes into, I bring a lot of my classes into these talks. Okay, then I will go to the last slide. So in conclusion, and I just picked these out, I'm sure there are more. A Course in Miracles surrenders by giving up our misperception and listening to the inner voice. Buddhism surrenders by giving up our mental afflictions and understanding the nature of reality as impermanent, empty, and interconnected. Bhagavad Gita, surrender to the divine will. And non-doership, realize that life just happens. We don't control it. It happens. We're not in charge. Life happens through us. We don't do life. The next Conscious Conversations is on March 1st. These are talks that are the first Saturday of each month. I will be speaking in April. If you would like reminders of future talks, please email me and I will put you on my mailing list. If you would like to speak with someone at the Virtual Practitioner Program, Reverend Michelle is our senior minister. And I believe that is it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you, Jen.
thank you. Thank you for, it was good seeing you again, Sherry. You know, I'm the World Ministry of Prayer Phone Team lead too. So we spoke then too.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And we were in, and we saw each other every week, but you would, you would recognize me.
Yeah, you might want to go into your computer settings and just make sure the camera.
Yeah, I'm going to call my friend and see what I can do. So thank you for joining me. And I will see you around.
Thanks for doing this. You bet.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.